Hey everyone, I'm Liz Fairy, and today I'm going to show you how to add a fire mane and tail to your crochet horse dolls. If you want to see how I made these horse dolls out of crochet, you can find the link in the description below. Or if you want to see the technique I used to make my regular horse mane, you can check out my horse mane and tail tutorial. Some things you'll need for this tutorial are a crochet hook. I'll be using a size E. You'll need some yarn to make up the strands of hair. You could use any color for this method, but I'll be using some fiery colors to enhance the effect. I have red, yellow, and orange yarns to make a blazing red fire mane. If you want, you could make a frosty blue flame. Try using shades of blue, gray, and white. This technique looks best using multiple colors and shades. You'll also need some Aran or worsted weight yarn to act as the foundation for your mane and tail. I'll be using the red yarn as my foundation. Just make sure to use one of the same colors as the actual mane. You'll need some scissors, a yarn needle, a grooming brush, and of course you'll need a horse doll. If you like, you can purchase the written pattern for my horse doll or my centaur doll. It's available in my Ravelry store, and you can find that link in the description below. The techniques I used are almost the same for both the fiery mane and the normal mane, so I'll be showing you part of this project using the footage from my other horse mane video. First, I'm going to create a foundation to place the strands of my mane onto. Remember, for the fiery horse, I'll be using my red yarn as the foundation. So I'm going to pull up a loop at the top middle of the back of my doll's head and chain one. And that's going to count as the first stitch, so I'll mark it with a bobby pin. Then I'm going to single crochet in a straight line down the middle of the neck into each row until I get to where I want the mane to end. I'm going to do about 20 stitches total, but if you made a larger doll, you might need more stitches. Okay, I've reached the bottom of the neck just above the shoulders, so now I'm going to end the row. So to end the row, I'm just going to slip stitch to the next row of the body. Then I'm going to cut off my yarn and sew in the end. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the tail and create a foundation for my strands. This one's going to be a little different though. And again, remember that I'll be using my red yarn as the foundation for the fiery horse. And then I'm going to chain 6 to act as the foundation. But if you made a larger horse doll, you may need to create a longer chain. Just chain more than 6 in the foundation chain. Okay, I have my 6 chains. Next I'll chain one more to count as the first stitch. And again, I'll mark that stitch with my bobby pin. Now I'm going to single crochet into the 3rd chain from my hook. Then I'm going to single crochet into each of the remaining chains until I get back to the bottom. I should have a total of 6 stitches. Okay, here at the bottom I'm going to slip stitch into the same stitch where I pulled up a loop at the beginning of the row. Then I'm going to cut off my yarn and sew in the end. Alright, now that I'm done with my foundation rows, I'm going to cut my strands. Each strand needs to be double the length I want the final hair to be, so I'm going to measure and cut my strands for the mane and the tail. If you like, you could use a book or a piece of cardboard that's about the length that you want your hairs to be, and you could wrap your yarn around the cardboard to make sure all your strands are the same size. I'll be using this piece of cardboard that I cut to the length that I want the hairs to be. Make sure you cut enough strands that you can place one strand of yarn into the loops at the top and bottom and onto each post of the single crochets from our foundation rows. That means you should cut at least 3 strands per stitch. So I'll cut 60 strands for the mane, since there were 20 stitches in the mane, and 18 strands for the tail, since there were 6 stitches in the tail. If you like, you could make the mane and the tail different lengths, but for the sake of simplicity, I'll just make all the strands the same size. Also, I'm using 3 different colors for my mane and tail. I'm going to make double the amount of red strands as yellow or orange strands, so I'll cut 2 strands of red for every strand of yellow or orange. So I'll need 13 yellow strands, 13 orange strands, and 52 red strands. Okay, I've finished cutting all my strands. Now I'm going to anchor my strands. So here's the first stitch. I'm going to work into the top loop here. And I'm going to leave the bottom loop here empty for now, so that I can add another row to that loop later. So first I'm going to take a strand and fold it in half to create a loop in the middle. Now I'm going to pull up that loop from the middle of my strand into the top loop of one of the stitches of my foundation row. Then I'm going to pull both of my tail ends of my strand through that loop. Then I'm just going to pull both of these ends to tighten the loop. And now my strand is anchored. So I'm just going to keep doing that until I've added a strand to the top loop of each stitch of my foundation rows. Since I'm using 3 different colors, I'll mix up the colors a bit as I go. Okay, now I have a strand in each top loop. For this row of hair, I'm going to work into the bottom loop only, the loop we left out in the last row. So take a strand, fold it in half, and pull it up from the middle into just the bottom loop of the stitch. Then pull both tails through the loop, and pull both ends to tighten the loop. And now the strand is anchored. Now I'm going to add another strand to each bottom loop in the same way. Since I'm using 3 different colors and I have double the amount of red strands as orange or yellow, I just need to make sure there's only 1 yellow or orange strand per stitch, and 2 red strands per stitch. So I'll make sure not to use a strand of yellow or orange on the bottom loop of a stitch with yellow or orange on the top loop. Alright, I've added all my strands to my bottom loops. If you like, you could stop here, but I'm going to add another row of strands around the posts of each stitch, to add more volume to the hair. So the post of the stitch is this pair of loops right here underneath where I placed the first 2 rows of hair. So I'm going to fold my strand, then I'm going to pull up a loop around the post of my stitches, around these 2 loops. And pull the tails through the loop on my hook. Now I'll do the same thing with the remaining strands until I've finished adding strands to each post. And once again, since I'm using 3 different colors and I have double the amount of red strands as orange or yellow, I'll make sure there's only 1 yellow or orange strand per stitch and 2 red strands per stitch. Alright, I've added all the strands to the foundation rows of both the mane and the tail. Next I'm going to pull apart each strand and brush it out to shape the flames. This is pretty much the same technique I used in my doll wig series. So I'm going to take each strand of yarn and I'm going to untwist them so that each individual thread of the yarn is loose. Then once I've completed the entire mane and tail, I'm going to use my grooming brush to brush out all these strands, to give them a more flame-like shape. I'll make sure to brush them upwards so that it looks like the flames are dancing off the horse's body. Once the strands are brushed, you can see all the individual colors beginning to blend into each other. Next, I'll use my fingers to shape the hair into little tongues of flame. First, I'll separate a small bunch of hair, then I'll swirl it a little with my fingers into a point. I'm just going to do that here and there in random places to give the suggestion of flames. And now the mane and tail are complete. If you want to see the technique I used to make my regular horse mane and tail, you can find that link in the description below, as well as the links for my horse body tutorials, more doll hair videos, or my pattern store on Ravelry, where you can find all my designs. If you use any of these techniques to make a horse or centaur doll of your own, I'd love to see your interpretation. You can find all of my social media links in the description below. If you enjoyed this tutorial, you could press the like button or share it on social media. And if you'd really like to help out the channel, you could donate to my Patreon. You can get some pretty cool perks through Patreon, like seeing my videos early, access to some of my prototype patterns, and discounts in my Ravelry store, depending on your level of donation. You can find out more about that at patreon.com/fairyrings. You could also subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss the next video, and I'll see you next time. Bye!